Would you describe the drug approval process for us?
Sure. The process is actually a long one. It can take 2, 3, 4 years to get your drug approved, which is a great concern to the drug industry. They have
Sure.
a patent that's 20 years, and every week that drug's on the market under patent protection means millions of extra dollars, so it's a very great concern that they speed that process up. And so they do everything they can to speed the process up. But nevertheless, they have to go through a IND process, investigational new drug, where they submit the paperwork saying, here's what we plan to do. They will use rats, they will use monkeys, other kinds of animals, and they want to find out exactly what dosages we find death, what dosages bring real harm.
Okay.
And that allows you to start establishing some levels for use with humans. And you go through a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and actually we have phase 4 part of your study, where we actually begin by giving it to a small number of people, and then we enlarge that number, and then we let it out in phase 3 to the general public. And phase 4 is after it's been released to the public, the American people are taking the drug.
All right.
Let's find out what the ill effects are, and let's
So
report those.
By then, the public is taking the drug.
The public is taking them.
Okay.
And unfortunately, what's amazing is that phase 4 studies are generally not done. By law, they must be done. They're generally not done. Why?
not?
Because pharmaceutical industry knows it's not in their best interest to do those studies. They just don't do them. They think, well, hold it, the FDA will shut them down. FDA says they simply do not have the personnel and the resources to enforce the law. And so today we find that there are antidepressants released. There should immediately be these phase 4 studies done of adverse events that are not done. And so this is part of the problem. We're not doing the research that's required by law. It's just not done. And the FDA simply will not assert the authority they do have to say, until those studies are done, we're going to no longer allow you to sell that drug. They won't do that.
And they say it's because they lack the personnel?
They lack the personnel and the financial resources. They believe they need greater funding in order to enforce the law.
So just scoot on by and pass out the drug?
Well, this is why we have, it takes about 7 years on average before we have an adverse drug reaction we didn't know about reported in the literature. And so if you start looking at how long does it take to find out that these drugs actually cause diabetes, how long does it take to find out that you have cardiac problems in pregnant women taking SSRIs, very common. Didn't know that for the first 15, 20 years that after Prozac was approved. It took years and years, so it takes years, which says to me, a general principle is, if you're going to take a drug, don't take one that's new. There's generally a form of that drug that's been on the market for years. The longer it's been on the market, the more safety you have. The more recent the drug, you think, well, I want the latest and the best. No, you need to take a drug that's been on the market.
If it has longevity, it's been through that phase 4. And
no, it doesn't mean it's been through phase 4, but it does mean it's been on the market long enough that if people develop heart attacks as a result, if there's strokes because of it, muscle deterioration, we're probably going to find out in time. That's true of Fen-Phen and Baycol and all the others. Some of these drugs were taken by, literally some of the drugs, by millions of Americans. Some of these drugs literally caused many, many deaths. And then we discovered something's going on here, often because of reports to the CDC. Some emergency room physician will think, that's the second one I've seen in 6 days, and I've never read anything about this. And so he will call or she will call the FDA or the CDC and report. And so some investigation will begin. Sometimes it comes about as a result of newspaper reporters, literally, who have an interest in drug research. And they will, by talking to physicians, they will publish some articles that leads the FDA to do another investigation. That's how, in fact, the danger of suicide related to antidepressants came up in America. The British got upset about this. The Germans, remember, at first said, we're not going to approve Prozac because of all the suicides, 3 times the risk. The British later required GlaxoSmithKline to go back into their files and find out if there was any danger there because of these reports that were coming out in the media. GlaxoSmithKline did it, said, guess what, we missed this. They had called all those suicide threats and actual suicides emotional lability. Well, who knows what emotional lability is? Never heard the term. I'd never heard the term.
Emotional liability?
Emotional lability.
Lability.
Lability. I don't know the word other than I know that's what GlaxoSmithKline called it. And so they said, guess what? There is a risk here. We're sorry, we didn't really notice this. The British government reacted to that. Then we had the New York Attorney General, hearing what was happening in Great Britain, say, I want to know more. And that led to lawsuits out of the New York State's Attorney General office. That's not where it should come. It should have started with the FDA more than 2 decades earlier, but that's where it was. And of course, that ultimately led to the black box warning on these antidepressants required by
And
the FDA.
that's why so many of them got by, was because there wasn't a stage 4.
Because they're not stage 4 reporting is a big factor, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.